Okay, so in this example, we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting radicals, and in particular, square roots. Now, before we do this problem, let's first talk about radicals. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw out a little template here. So I'll just put x here. Okay, so I had the square root of x. So just labeling the parts of a radical, this part right here is called our index. And when you're dealing with a square root, they don't write it in, but there is actually a 2 here. Okay, so that's called our index. Then our check mark, right, this part right here is called our radical. That's our radical symbol. And then the part underneath our radical, which in this case would be x, we call our radicand. Okay, so there are 3 parts to our radical. We have our index, our radical, and our radicand. All right, that's going to be important to know as we move forward here. Okay, so let's go ahead and erase this. So let's look at number 1. We want to add these. So we get the square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 2. Now here are the rules you need to remember. There are 2 rules. The first rule is they have to have the same index. And again, these are both square root, so there is naturally a 2 here for our index, even though they don't write it in, there is a 2. So they have the same index, good, that's rule 1. Rule 2, they have to have the same radicand. In this case, they do, it's 2 and 2. So we just passed both of our rules, right? So we can go ahead and add these. So there is a 1 out in front here, even though it's not written, so 1 plus 5 is 6, and then our radicand just stays the same. And there it is. This is our final answer right here. Okay? Let's take a look at number 2. 2 is a little bit different. So we get 5 square root of 2 plus the square root of 8. So we want to go through our 2 rules. Rule 1, does it have the same index? And yes, it does, right? They're both square roots, so they have an index of 2. But if we look at our radicand, right, the part underneath the radical, they're not the same. So we can't add these yet. Let's look at the square root of 8. Let's break this down using prime factorization, right? So breaking this down, we get 4 and 2, and this breaks down to 2 and 2, so I have it down to its prime factors. And since it's a square root, right, we need 2 of the same number in order for that number to come out. So I have a pair right here. So a 2 can come out, and this, right, is going to be left behind, so we just get the square root of 2. All right, so we just simplified this down, and look what happens now. So we have 5 square root of 2 plus 2 square root of 2. Okay? Now, we have the same index, yes, and we have the same radicand, right? So now we can go ahead and perform the operation. So we do 5 plus 2, which is 7. And again, your radicand does not change. It's just the square root of 2. All right, here it is. This is our final answer. All right, let's take a look at number 3. That'll be it. So this one is subtraction, but we're going to follow our same rules. So we get 4 square root of 2 minus 5 square root of 18. So let's go through our 2 rules. Does it have the same index? Yes, it does. Again, they're both the square root, so they have an index of 2, right? But our radicand is not the same, so let's take a look at the square root of 18. Let's see if we can simplify that down, right? Using prime factorization. So using 2 numbers, I get 9 and 2, and this is 3 and 3, so I add it down to its prime factors. Okay, so you need 2 of the same number in order to pull that number out. So I have 2 right here, so a 3 comes out, a 2 stays behind. Now look, I do have a 5 here, so what happens is this, I have 5, I pull out a 3, so it's multiplication times 3, and then we have the square root of 2. So this is going to give us 15 here, so watch what happens now. We get 4 square root of 2 minus, and we're just going to put 15 square root of 2. Okay? And now we can perform our operation because, again, we have the same index, good, and we have the same radicand, right, good. So performing this operation, 4 minus 15, that's going to give us negative 11. So we get negative 11 square root of 2. Again, our radicand does not change. This here is going to be our final answer. Okay, so that is adding and subtracting radicals, and in particular, square roots.